At Endo Cafe in Lancaster City, Pennsylvania, sitting down with Jake Sitler here. We just went for about an hour ride in Lancaster
County Parks.
Lancaster County Park. So we were chatting there. Jake Sitler is an ex-pro cyclist. Now he's a businessman. I guess he always has been. He's a father.
Yes.
He kind of does everything. And he's got a boatload of energy, and we're going to be here today.
Well, yeah, thanks, man. This is going to be fun.
Yeah,
we're here at the cafe. We actually, so interesting fact about Lancaster County Parks, it's there's a little samba trying to work with the park officials, get a little professional maintenance going on there. So if anyone's listening, that could be a pretty cool thing that happens down there. It's a nice little ride. It's a little, little technical, it's all over the place, but I think it's a great thing to have in the city.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, a lot of good stuff going on down there. But yeah, I guess for today, we really just want to explore the life and the different activities of Jake Sitler, which is quite interesting. Kind of the reason we're here, drinking coffee. But I want to start in a interesting spot. I want to see when you were like 8 years old, what did you want to be when you grew up?
8 years old. It's funny you actually asked me that. I wrote my grandparents had this. I don't know if it was my mom, and they wrote it out. And I was going to be a professional hockey player for the Mighty Ducks. I was going to be married and have 3 kids. So that's what I wanted to be, apparently, a professional hockey player for the Mighty Ducks and have 3 kids. Which is very specific that I even remembered that, but like my mom and I had a conversation within the past year or so, and she pulled the paper out, and that's what I wanted to be. And I think after I graduated, I was going to own my family's grocery store. Okay. Or after I was done being a hockey player, but I don't know if I made that kind of money, why you would want to own a grocery store.
So somewhere along the lines, you did not become
yes.
a hockey player.
So in 8th grade, I was still playing hockey. I was like playing. It was middle school hockey, but the 9th graders would come down and play. And this was open check, and it was like the first time I ever played open check. And I was pretty quick. Like I had like good little I was wiry. Mm-hmm. And I could get into trouble. That was the problem. And I remember my dad was actually a coach, and I was like first open check, and I was pretty small. I'm like 85 pounds, and went out for skate. I was just flying up the middle, and I remember some 9th grader just absolutely laid me out, like life-changing hit for that time in my life. And I looked at my dad. I shook it off. I was like, oh my God, that was big. But the next year, I would have been having to play high school hockey, and my dad, I remember vividly, he was like, so your mom and I were talking, and we were like, we'll buy you a cyclocross bike if you quit hockey, because we're worried you're going to die. So I was like, all right, I guess I can do it, which is probably a good thing, because I'd probably have even more broken bones if I would have stayed on the old ice hockey train.
So your dad got you into cycling.
Yep.
And that was what, 8th grade, 9th grade?
Yeah, probably 8th grade, 9th grade, where it started to become doing the racing and stuff.
Now, were you in any other sports during high school?
Cross country. So I would go do cross country and track through high school, and it was kind of one of those things. Like the MA Super Series is all summer long, so it was run all spring, fall, winter, and then mountain bike for fun in the summer. And I think I remember there was a time when there would be an overlap of had cross country starting and doing the last mass series, and my coach would be like, "You seem a little more tired today." It's like, coach, I was racing mountain bikes this weekend.
Yeah.
But it was good, man. The suffering you get from a young age in those bike races is pretty next level. I just remember just terrible bonking, no idea how to eat, no idea how to pace, no idea really how to do anything. But
so then you graduate high school, and so you had always wanted to go to college. It was just how did you choose what your next steps were? Were there any influences?
Yeah, I mean, I'd give obviously my parents. I got to give that to influence my parents. I mean, I grew up in a family environment with a grocery store, so like we had in my family's line of business, we had owned a small store in Crowley, Pennsylvania from 1931. So 1931 until obviously I went to college. So business was always going to be something I wanted to do. I saw my grandfather do it, my father do it. My mom always pushed me in that direction. It was just a question of whether I wanted to ride or bike. And I think in 2007, when I graduated, the cycling, the infrastructure in college wasn't as developed as running. I mean, running's an NCAA sport. You know, there's scholarship money. I wasn't getting any of that at the time, but it was, you know, a more, I guess, structured environment. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I would say, and Shippensburg in Pennsylvania, I was looking at Shippensburg or Penn State. They had both accredited business programs in Shippensburg. My coach was an Olympian, Steve Spence, and that was definitely a draw to go somewhere that had that kind of, you know. And he showed me attention. I was terrible. I mean, that guy could probably that guy's actually, his marathon PR was faster than my mile PR per mile. And he still talked to me, which is incredible. His daughter was faster than me. His high school daughter probably ran a mile faster than me in high school. Who I am friends with to this day.
That's awesome. So you get to Shippensburg then. Now, we were talking about this on the ride a little bit, and it seems like you were not a good student
to start.
Definitely not. At Shippensburg. No. Your favorite drink was PBRs, and your team wasn't really in the.
No, it was. Shippensburg had been a good team in the past. They had been second at nationals in like 1992 before. So they had, and Spence went to Shippensburg, and then he was multiple time. I think he was NCAA champion. He was school record holder. He had, like, I think for a while, the Division II national record in the 5K, like 13:56 or something. He was fast, and then he went on to race at the 1992 Barcelona World Championships, where he was third. And he was and then he went to the Tokyo Olympics, which he didn't do great at. And I may have this a little backwards, but anyway, he wanted to redevelop the program because I had mentioned his daughter was going to be coming there the next year, and we were, you know, definitely we were a little out of control. It was a lot of drinking, a lot of not doing great at the school. My parents were not pleased the first year. There's no doubt about it.
Well, what brought you guys together?
You know, it's interesting. I felt like we'd all come from a little bit of different backgrounds, but similar in the sense that none of us were heads and shoulders above the rest. So the competition between us was pretty intense. You know, everyone could beat anyone on a given day. And it was just kind of it wasn't an overnight change, but it was a friendship group that kind of, we decided, you know, like, dude, we don't want to be slack offs. Like, we all want to be successful and want to have good running careers, and we were really into it. And we just fed off each other's vibe, and that kind of just parlayed into year after year of like total, like, bought into the whole thing, like big time bought into it. I mean, we lived like professional athletes by the end. Yeah. And it showed. I mean, by the end of it, it did show me, at least from that perspective, like what real hard work and like actual dedication to a sport and living that lifestyle, what it could allow you to accomplish, especially from someone like me. Like, I mean, I ended up I think my high school PR was like 10:17 in the 2 mile. And then by the time I was graduating, I was probably in like 8:55 2 mile shape. So like, that's just from, I don't attest it to anything other than just actual putting your head down and doing the work.
Definitely. Yeah, that's a huge shift from like going into college, kind of that like fun party lifestyle. I mean, you guys were still training hard, but then to like really hone in on it.
We had this thing called Rage Week then. So the way that we got it out was we would train really hard. Don't let me not tell you that we didn't party. I mean, then we would do this thing called Rage Week, and then after Rage Week, we would finish it with this thing called Plumbee, and it was, you had to drink 6 beers and run a 5K. So that was like the mid-season, like whoever won Columbia was like a god. You were like the legend. You could just drink six. I mean, we were by the end of, and the thing is, you could vomit, so you didn't have to hold it all in. But I think by the end, we were like a couple of us were running like 17:08 5Ks. We're drinking 6 beers. It was pretty fast.
Yeah, I never hit that sober in my cross country career.
But yeah, we went for it, and and the thing was, you had to party until 2 a.m. the night before. So then you woke up at like it was dude, that feeling. I don't think I would survive right now at 32 if I tried to do that.
That's like the beautiful thing about like endurance sports is it often gets linked with like alcohol and like just seeing how much you can do like combining the two.
I'm not saying that binge drinking is a good thing by any stretch of the imagination. However, there was definitely a time in my college career where I remember at the time, this story. My parents love telling this story. I remember my sister and my mom and my dad like surprise visited me at college for church. They wanted to go to church or something, and we had a party or something the night before, and oh my god, there was beer cans all over the place, and they just like knock on the door, and it's like, I mean, if you've ever seen our college house, it wasn't family ready, and mom and dad rolled in. My sister at the time, who was probably 14, 15, there was a board, and it was like, I think the night before we had like a chugging competition. It was like written down in marker, like, and I was like, chugging, and I was like, what did you do in like 4.8 seconds? I was like, oh, we were chugging milk.
Chugging.
I'm sure my dad bought it for 0 seconds, but my mom, I think she just feigned ignorance at the time.
Now, earlier you mentioned a story about like almost drowning in. Are you open to telling that one?
Well, my wife now, the boss, the Endo Cafe owner, she's seen me through my highs and lows, so she knows what she was getting into. We did not date in college, but she's actually the one that called 911. In cross country camp, the first year we would have this competition where we would do like a swim training, because runners tend to get injured. So when you get injured, you're going to have to know how to cross train. So we would do like a cross training session at the gym, or the highest pool, it was called. And we used to start with like aqua jogging and all these like plyometrics in the water, and we like would finish off with hold your breath underwater competition, like who could swim the most. And I grew up, my grandparents had a pool, and I loved doing this, like just swimming underwater, see how many laps I could make. Mm-hmm. And I think the year prior I did like 2 laps, and it was a regular sized pool, like down and back, no breathing.
Yeah.
And then this like freshman came in, and he did 2 laps and like made it look pretty easy, and popped up, and I was like, oh, no way is a freshman coming in here. So I went down, and I was like getting halfway back. I'm like, oh man, I should breathe. Probably, but no, it's like, no way, dude, I'm not breathing. Got to the end, and I remember like getting like to the wall, but apparently I got to the wall, and then I like pushed off again, and then like I just allegedly just sank to the bottom.
You just blacked out.
And everyone thought I was dicking around, because that's how I was. And they're like, oh, he's being Jake. And so they let me down there for a bit. Lifeguard's like, apparently the lifeguard at the time, he was one of the coaches, she's like taking all her clothes off. My coach just like jumped in with his whistle. My buddies. Oh dude, yeah, it was bad. And then I remember like I was seeing lights like coming back, like electrical lights. And this girl I had a crush on at the time, she was about to do CPR. So it was literally going to be like the Sandlot.
The Sandlot,
like,
yeah.
Oh dude, and I came to right before she was about to give me mouth to mouth.
Just missed it.
It's unbelievable. Unbelievable. If I could go back, let's just stay asleep a little bit longer, because that would make the story even more epic, but
yeah,
no mouth to mouth. Instead, I had a hospital visit, and then my mom driving up and then trying to convince me I was leaving and had to go home, and I was like, I'm not leaving. And then my coach had like the awkwardness of like us fighting, like but yeah, I didn't leave. She ended up sleeping on my college floor, and it was disgusting. She was like, well, because you can apparently dry drown. Can
you?
Yeah, so if you drown, what happens is you drown after you drown because it's in your lungs, and then you like the fluid, I guess, like, and you just, it's called dry drowning, and you like will just die.
Wow.
In your sleep. So,
I didn't know that.
So yeah, had to sleep beside my mom for the night.
Yeah.
And my girlfriend at the time, she slept on the other couch. Make it a little less awkward.
So you got out of college alive. That was good. Now,
yeah.
How do you make the transition into cycling? Because you were always a runner. I mean, you were in the steeplechase.
Yep.
Doing all of that. Like, what were the moments or the people that made that switch happen?
There's a few people that definitely aided in that transition. Like I had an injury after my final year going into steeplechase. I had redshirted to get my master's, and Shippensburg offered like a 1 year straight through master's program in business, which looking back, like the master's hasn't done anything for me, but it's a very like master's for anyone that's looking in business. Like I recommend, going and living a life a little bit, and then you can apply it better, but I didn't. I redshirted to ride to run, and then I did have that injury after my first race of the year, which I provisionally qualified for nationals in the steeple, so I was like pretty gung-ho and thought I was on pretty good form. But I couldn't run for months. Like, and I was trying though. Like I was like coming down to New York and getting like every sort of treatment I could possibly get to fix it, but by the time, like, it's called our PSACs, which is like the conference championship at the end, I just like realized finally I wasn't gonna run, and I was like cross training on the bike. I mean, dude, I was like a 20-some-year-old kid like that just gave up what I thought was gonna be my best year ever. I didn't know what I wanted to do.
Yeah, because you're coming out of college. I mean, you just graduated. You're like not gonna be a professional runner. Like,
no, not a chance.
Yeah, like what were you thinking of going into work, or what were
my family had the business, so that was always going to be there, the grocery store, and I was like, which was a nice buffer, right? Like I always had that, like I can have a job if I need to. So I threw myself into cycling, and by throw myself like 9 to 10 hours a week max, and just called up some old buddies. One guy, Sean Mealy, he was like a local guy that used to take me out when I was like 15, 16, riding bikes, like kind of like my dad's older friend group of mountain bikers in the area. And then my old bike shop, they were called Gung Ho, they're in York, reached out to them and they got me on a mountain bike, and kind of just, it went very quickly from there. Things happened pretty fast. Which is good though, because I still had that form from the running side, and like that like drive and that like, but then I had to like navigate a whole entire different sport and navigate like the intricacies of cycling.
Yeah. So you get into cycling, you got a bike, bring me to, it was Whiteface 100K, kind of like what that event meant to you, like kind of where you were at. And
it's funny because like all my best friends went with me, like, and they're still like my closest friends, and we lived this like vibe of just like drinking and going to these races for a little bit, like that college like party atmosphere. But like I needed that, like the support of it, and then people kind of traveling with me, and my buddies, we drove up to Whiteface, we were having a great time. I didn't know what to expect, I didn't know what I was gonna do, and we went up there, and like halfway through the race I found myself in the breakaway with Justin Lindeen, who was a professional cyclocross racer and mountain biker, and I was like, I didn't know who he was until later, right? Like until like the end of it. But at that point, I was like, whoa, I never did anything like this before.
Yeah.
It's like, this is different.
You're like, I'm in the wrong sport here. Like,
I realized pretty quickly that because I had always wondered if I should have ridden or run, and I think the running provided the structure, and that structure is very important at that age. But just my muscles are not meant to be economically running, man. I just didn't have the economy. I'm a quad guy. So did the Whiteface 100K, was first amateur, was in like a group of pro riders, and then I had gotten in touch with Brandon Dragelis, who was from Shippensburg, and he was a professional mountain biker, and we would go out training, and he would smack me on the dirt stuff, and he was like, dude, you can climb though. You should look into road cycling.
Yeah.
And that's kind of when that slow transition started to happen to the road bike. And from there, yeah, the road bike, a big guy for that was Jared Nieders, and he was like a guy that had gotten Joe Dombrowski through the up into the pro ranks before he signed for, I think his first year was with Sky. So they had a model of like what it took to get a kid.
Now, like during this time of kind of like your upbringing within the pro cycling or like your journey there, were there any like coaches or mentors that really like stuck out to you that brought you up, or was you kind of like on your own? Like
no. I mean, I think being that I was older, my mentorship was different. I never lived this like. It's hard to explain because like pro cycling, you know these young kids that are doing the world tour stuff now, they're groomed for it from a very young age now. Like some of these kids are signing pro world tour contracts, like they're showing talent levels at 18 that you can only dream of, right?
Yeah.
I was like it was like people helped me in that direction, but it wasn't like you have to do it like this, and this. And the people that helped me were very open-minded with the different way to do it. Like I would say from a coaching perspective, my coach, his name was John Cutler, and it's interesting because he's actually gotten very, 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 I wouldn't say he's famous, but very popular in product development in Silicon Valley. Okay. Like he's actually quite sought after. He was a genius. Like he was actually, I would truly say he was the in my entire adult life, he was the best coach I've ever had. He was incredible.
What do you think that was different about him that stood out, or something you learned that you still use today?
I had lived a life of he didn't have to babysit me, first of all. Because of Coach Spence and what I had learned in collegiate athletics, you know, lifestyle management, I already had that down. He wasn't going to have to tell me how to live my life. This was just straight writing workouts for me. Yeah. Writing workouts and a little mental. He was good with the mental. Quality over quantity, just the way that he taught me to believe in myself with the work that I could put in and the power numbers. To me, it opened my eyes to like, sometimes I'm pretty sure that professionals like, let's just ride their bike to ride their bike.
Yeah.
Like, I got nothing happening today, so I'm going to go ride some more. Not that you don't need that, but there's a fine line.
Yeah, that like quality over quantity. Like it's not just going out riding for 6 hours just because you can.
No, exactly.
Getting that quality 3 hours in.
Yeah, because I mean, when you're racing, you know, when you're really, really racing, I mean, it's all quality, that race. But I mean, yeah, if you're racing the World Championships, if you're racing the Tour de France, are there days where you need to just be able to be on the bike for 5 to 6 hours? Yeah, but I mean, I think the biggest stage race I ever did was, when was the biggest one I ever did? Well, Tour of Ireland was like 900 miles in 6 days, I think, 7 days. That was big, but I had done some bigger ones. But yeah.
So at this point, kind of in the story, you're getting into pro cycling, or like on the road, or you're doing some like amateur races, like. So how do you get onto like that continental pro level?
I mean, at the time it was. I want to say it wasn't harder or whatever it is. It's always hard to get a professional or continental contract, especially at an older age. It's just kind of coming up. So I've been told about, you got to go pay to play, and that's like go and race in these composite programs and get into the big races, get in front of the directors. That's really all you can do, get in front of the directors and impress them. So I spent essentially a year of just like hopping in composite teams at some of the bigger UCI races like Redlands, Joe Martin, and did, I think for myself at the time, well, like great learning experiences. And then 2 rides. I mean, the one that got me the contract was I lapped the field at Air Force, which was a PRT race. It was an NCC crit at the time. and with UHC and Bobby Olympian and a couple of the other guys, and yeah, that was essentially what sealed the deal.
Okay. Now there's one guy there, Clay Murfitt.
Yeah.
Tell us about Clay Murfitt and kind of how.
Clay Murfitt. This guy's he's well known. If you've raced Clay if you've raced any time from 2008 to 2017. But he's from Tasmania. He's larger than life guy. He's an awesome dude. I like direct messaged him on Twitter, and I was like, hey man, looking for a ride next year. Any recommendations? Probably like stroked his ego a little bit or something. Like sent him a nice message. Told him, and he's like, oh, you're the guy with the shit sunglasses. He was like, I remember you. He was like, yeah man, he was true to his word. Gave a good word to the director, and I had a phone call like the next week. With Astellas, they were it was owned by a Japanese pharmaceutical company, but we were like in their American branch, and they had a crit squad and a road race squad, and I don't think they knew where I was going to fit in, but yeah, they gave me a shot, and that pretty much changed everything.
Yeah, that changed everything there.
Yeah. I didn't end up living some, life. I'm not going to sit here and say I was at the tour and doing whatever, but
yeah,
I did some pretty cool races. Like I got to live and see some things.
Yeah, I was talking earlier about Phil Guyman's book, where he gets into the nitty gritty of pro cycling and how, like, it looks amazing where you're just like traveling all over the world. I mean, you were talking about Spain, China, all over the world, but there's like some downsides to that. So like,
I got the best story ever.
What do people not see? What do they not see on Instagram?
This is the best story of all time. Actually, I got to roll the sleeves up. So, first year contract, we're down in. Oh man, I mean, it was a cool team in Stellas. Like, Justin Williams was on the team. A couple Europeans. We had some serious talent. Ryan Aitchison was. Adam Meyerson, like it was a hodgepodge of just like different people, some young British kids. I forget why we did Florida. I don't even know why, but we had our first race training camp was in Florida, and then we were flying out to do San Dimas. The road squad was going San Dimas Redlands, and I don't know what happened, but our director had to like last minute book us a flight, and I love the guy, his name's Andrew Fry, but he books us this flight, and we like land at like 12 a.m. in Los Angeles. And dude, all right, I'm gonna set the scene here. All right, so it's me, an 18-year-old kid from Florida, an 18-year-old British kid, a Mormon, nothing, he's a good dude, but a kid from the UK, an older guy from the UK, a Belgian, and myself. Okay, so that's the group of people flying.
Yeah.
We land in Los Angeles, and we like are waiting forever for the shuttle to get there.
It's midnight, right?
It's waiting. And then this dude who rolls up in this blacked out Sprinter, he's got to put like 6 spikes in the back of this thing, and he's got a disco ball in it, dude. Get in the car. There's like dudes that are like dodgy looking dudes sitting in the car. Whatever. No judgment here. We're like we're driving through. We stop in LA. 100% or witness a drug deal before we get to our location. There's some sort of exchange that happens. Well, whatever, no big deal. Get into our place, and it's called the Adventure Hostel. I'm like, okay, no big deal. Go, guy like sitting in the lobby. There's like people like there's like this like weird like middle section where people are like floating in the pool. They were 100% completely out of their mind on some sort of narcotic. Oh, dude, it's like wild, man. Get taken into our room, and the rooms are less than ideal. Not even sure they lock. And we get in, and we're in 2 separate rooms, and I'm the new guy, so like all the guys that are teammates, the older guys are like, well, we'll share a bed, and I get stuck with the young kids. We make it like 30 minutes into it, and the older teammates are like, yo, this is effed up right now. This is not even safe. So they rent a car in a piece. And I'm like, dude, I'm not leaving these 18-year-old kids. So it's me and these like young kids, and I'm like, whatever. riding it out, man. It's like, ride this wave, dude. Like, whatever. This is where my life has brought me. I'm just gonna enjoy it. Like, I'm still green, dude. Like, these guys have like been living professional cyclists for probably 2 or 3, 4, 5 years. They're like, screw this. Like, I'm not living doing this. And I'm just like, hell yeah, this is awesome. So, waiting there. It's like, and I'm starting to like get some, like, things are getting a little creepier. It's like 2 a.m. Like, someone's trying to get in the room. And I'm like, okay. I'm like laying right beside the door, and they're like in the back room, and I'm like, oh my god, like, do I have a pedal wrench? Like, what am I gonna do? No one gets in. Wake up like 6 a.m. The old ganja's fumigating into the room. I'm like, okay, time to wake up. Someone's smoking weed outside. Get up, go out. Beautiful California day though. I'm like, all right, we survived the night. Call a taxi though. This taxi rolls up, and he's now got to get me and 3 guys with 3 bike bags, and he's like, yo, what are you guys doing here? Like, what? He's like, I can't fit your stuff, but you need to get out of here. So he like loads us up, and he's like, where do you want to go? We're like, drive us to the beach. Drive us down to I'm drawing a blank, but drives us to the beach. Get out of there, wait for our mechanic to come. He's like, hits traffic, gets there like 8 hours out. So we've been sitting at the pier. I'm completely sunburned at this point. We've just been sitting outside, and it wasn't Santa Monica. I'm like drawing a blank now.
Well, at that point, like, did you gain context of where you were initially?
No, not
You're
yet.
like in the
Not yet.
deep of the ghetto.
So
or?
it was Englewood, dude. So it's which is where they made after freaking Grand Theft Auto.
Okay. So basically, you were in Grand Theft Auto.
No, dude, we were literally in so we're in Englewood, which is like, yeah. So I didn't. So there's a point of this story. So we get to San Dimas and we go out to eat, and I remember we went to like some Asian restaurant, and I'm sitting there and I'm like, oh, okay, we all buy our dinners, give them my credit card. And they're like, oh, sorry, sir, your card's been declined. And I'm like, no big deal. I'm traveling. Call them up. And they're like, yes, so you just, so-and-so spent us at so-and-so restaurant. I'm like, yeah, I did that. That was me. And then they're like, then you spent $6,000 at the Adventure Hostel. And I'm like, what? I was like, that was not me. So I got RFID'd at 2 a.m. when I said someone was trying to get in my room. They were outside of my room scanning my credit card.
Were they?
Yeah. I never gave them a card at the place because I was like, this is not the place where I put a card deposit down. Like, no one touched my credit card.
Wow.
So I got RFID. Yeah.
$6,000 charge.
$6,000 charge from the Adventure Hostel. So that's when I knew I was in it. And then I read the reviews. And then the reviews were incredible. You actually can look to this day at the reviews on that place, and it's like, yeah, do not go there ever. It's cheap, but it ain't where you want to go. So that was my first experience on a professional cycling team ever. So I mean, that set the stage, man. I mean, after that, it can't get much worse, dude. I mean, after that, I raced at some places. I mean,
yeah.
I raced in China. I mean, I raced.
Because a lot of these, we were talking about like the transient nature of a lot of these pro teams. I mean, they get a sponsor together, they get a coach, and like scrounge up some riders, and like the budget's not like Team Sky or something like that. So you're going on like all these like motels around.
Yeah.
Like it's nothing lavish.
I think that my final year at Stellus had $1 million.
Okay.
It was $1 million team, which is actually pretty good.
That's pretty. Okay.
Some of the good riders are getting decent salaries. Like I would say the infrastructure of that, it's always a shit show.
Yeah.
Like, unless you truly are like World Tour, like you said, or Pro Continental, I mean, even in those situations, I'm sure there's World Tour teams that people are like, yeah, it's a shit show over there. Like, it's just the nature of the sport. Nothing's controlled. Like, you don't know what the hotel's going to look like before you get there. I mean, think about your own travel now. You go somewhere and you're like, well, that wasn't what I expected. Yeah. I mean, I feel bad for the directors because it's like, unless you are at a place. To be honest, host housing at the end of it is the best because some of the host houses, dude, I stayed in some swanky pads, man. some of the host housing was like, you were living the dream, man. It was like mansions. Like they feed you, like you were treated like royalties in some scenarios. So I think if you got a good host house, you're like, yeah, this is good.
So that was on Estellas. Estellas was a pretty good team. And then they ended up folding, what, in 2016?
Yeah. The Stars pulled the budget. They wanted to sponsor more of the PGA.
Okay.
We actually folded like in the middle of the year. We got the news that they weren't going to like release like the half tier, the rest of like the 250,000 or something. But at that point, it's like you're committed, dude. Like you got to finish out the season. Guys that were like end of their careers or felt they were, it took all the wind out of their sails. Like I felt bad. Like we had hired like David Williams. I'm like really good friends with him. He was third the year prior at the TT National Championships. Incredible bike rider. But I think at that point he had lived the pro cycling game long enough that like if you either, and they actually do a podcast, like Eclipse on Tap. There's like a space podcast now. But when you're at that point, you're done. Yeah. So it went both ways. But if you were still eager, you're like, dude, I need to race and I need to figure this out. I felt like I handled it. For me, it's going to happen. Let's just keep my head down, keep racing, and hope I find something for next year. Because I didn't have another choice.
So what's like the process? Like, all right, so you hear that Estellas is folding. Like, what's going through your mind, or what's like your next actions? Are you like calling up people like, hey, do you know a team I can ride for?
You're always talking to directors. You're trying to make good impressions. You're always like at the races. You're gonna go up. Like at that time, I really wanted to ride for Rally. I think they were Optum at the time, so I was always Jonas Carney was the director of that. I was always talking to him at the big races, telling him how my rides were going. He was a super nice guy, but they know who they're gonna hire. Really, any team, like you're always talking to the different directors because you gotta have options and frankly, you know, you gotta see where you're like maybe gonna fit. And these directors talk like they know what type of rider you are. Yeah. They're gonna know a little bit about you too. I kind of that year I think there was only 2 of us that got a ride out of seat that stayed professional the next year out of like the 17 or 18 riders.
So you went.
It was bad because teams were folding all over the place. It was like 7 teams that folded that year.
Oh wow! So everyone's in a frantic state trying to.
Estella's folded. I know James folded. There was a couple. I think Smart Stop had folded that year. Yeah, there was a lot. It was a lot of teams. So it was a lot of riders. It's a super saturated market. So you're competing against like guys that are probably like top 10 in the nation kind of guys.
Yeah. But you ended up finding a team like.
Yeah, they had just went Continental, CCB. It was a kind of a different atmosphere. It was going to be a younger program. I was one of the only older riders above U23, but they felt like it was important to have someone that had raced professional level, a little more maturity. It was a different atmosphere that, looking back, if I would have been on a bigger team, I probably would have had a career that could have went differently, but also I really appreciate that experience because I got to do some really cool races. Like that year, I mean, I'll give it to Tim Mitchell was the director. He got us into some pretty amazing European races.
Yeah, well, one moment I definitely want to touch on, like every single St. Patrick's Day, you post one video, and in my research I saw your little write-up. It said it's 9:30 p.m. I'm at my wedding, and the DJ puts on a song, and it's the audio clip.
Remixed. Yeah, my teammate did that.
I thought that was the most hilarious thing.
Oh, dude, it was wild. I mean, I never really lived it down, but it was also like it was stage 4. It was the Queen stage of the Tour of Ireland, and anyone that knows about the Tour of Ireland, it's like it's the Tour de France of Ireland, and I've always had, like my whole entire life, I don't know why it is, I've got a little Irish heritage, but like I've always had a wanderlust for Ireland and like loved the accent, loved like the atmosphere of Ireland. So when I found out I was racing a Tour of Ireland, like it was like, this is awesome. Yeah. And I didn't know it at the time, but stage 4 took place in Donegal County. I lived and trained in Donegal County, named after, in Marietta's in Donegal, it's named after that area. Very similar, hilly, but not like sea level with hills.
Yeah.
And dude, even the guys you were racing against, like, dude, I actually was talking to my teammate at the time, Noah, and Granigan. Now we were talking about a guy. He just won a stage of, or Lee's back down. He was third. During what race was it? I don't know if it was Leach back. It was Sam Wellsford. He's a gold medalist. That guy, we partied so hard with him the last night of Tour of Honor, and I have hilarious videos of that guy. But it's crazy. Like, I mean, the guys you were with, like, that I was second on the stage, but the guy that won ended up winning 2 stages up in the Volta. And like there was incredible bike riders there, and it's the hardest race. It is the hardest race. The roads are tiny. Everyone's super excited to be racing, and the weather's usually bad. Like it's the greatest bike race I've ever done.
So that stage 4 there, how did that day kind of pan out?
Yeah, I had been riding pretty well, but like I had been in a breakaway the day before. Or even maybe it was the day after. But I knew I was riding well.
Yeah.
I had won Jeff Cup, which is like a pretty big regional race coming into this, and I won Turkey Hill, which is our big race around here.
Yeah.
I won solo at both of them, so I was like, the form's pretty good. And it's surreal that day. Like I remember getting into like the climbing section and seeing one of the Australian, which was Michael Storer, who I said ended up going on to win, attacked, and I just followed him. And we went solo for 30K, me and him and then one other kid, but we dropped him on the climb. He was from Poland. And yeah, dude, it was surreal. Like, I mean, that climb was like 9 minutes. I think we climbed like 470 watts for 9 minutes. Like, it was flying.
Yeah.
It was flying. Yeah. If I would have stayed with him over the edge, it would have been different, but we just kind of separated, and then we had to stay solo. And it was like it's interesting. So the climb is where the Everest world record is set.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's that steep, and like it's like 60 mile an hour downhill. But it was a headwind, so I had to like maintain the headwind finish like into the town of Buncrana. And I remember like at one point I almost went off the road, and I know like the motos, like they don't usually talk to you, but this moto was like, come on man, come on lad, like he was cheering me the whole way, dude. Like he wanted it to happen, like he was like, and then we like got up into town, and I am like cross-eyed, dude. And like I've never been winning a UCI bike race before. I don't know, at least in the lead. I don't know. The motos are getting flagged to the left. I'm just like, oh, I'm just following them. But if I would have looked up, I mean, you would have seen all the cheering people in the finish line that go left. And then some girl is like, no, wrong way. So I'm like, oh, no. Turns. Barely made it.
Yeah, in the video, like it's a great shot. Like you're coming through town, the 300-meter sign is right there, and you're just giving it everything you got. Dude. And the camera's like panning this way, and then they have to go back to you because you've gone off course. And there's this one spectator or something.
Yeah, he's a spectator.
He's like, Jesus, lad.
You know, what the? I hate that. It was hilarious. Yeah, so the sponsors actually made shirts because it was so funny. It's like,
really?
oh, Jesus lad shirts.
Jesus lad.
Yeah. But no, dude, I made it, and then I remember after, like, the girl that actually made me go the wrong way came up. She's like, Mr. Sitler, she's like, I'm the one that told you went the wrong way. And I gave her the flowers and stuff after the race, and I ended up getting the orange jersey and for the day, and yeah. It was,
is that the jersey up here in the shop?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so it was...
What is the orange jersey?
That was actually like stage winner. So
stage
because he won the KOM, he got the KOM, then I got the stage leader. So I got to race in the orange jersey, which was so awesome. The next day, and people were like it was cool because and they were just like, oh, dude, that was epic. That video didn't like go viral, but kind of went viral. Like viral for cycling, it went viral.
Yeah. So what did that day, like that was one of your biggest results like ever. Like what did that mean for the trajectory of your career, or at least what you thought it would mean?
I think at the time, I was one of 3 Americans that had a Europe Tour podium that year, which is like guys racing at actual World Tour level. Like there wasn't many. You don't get many of those. And now it was only a UCI 1.2, but it was still it was in the Europe Tour UCI calendar. It definitely got me, the directors were talking to me. Like they would email me back. Like we would have real conversations. I thought that, and then from there I actually had a good year. I
So that was what?
2017.
Ireland was like 2017.
That was early May, and then I went to like US Pro, like had a really good ride there. I rode, I just like every race was like for me like a good ride. And then we went back to Europe, and I was riding super strong in Europe.
This was what, 2018 now?
Yeah, I was like, no, 2017. I went back to Europe the same year. Was racing like UCI races in France, UCI races in Belgium. Was getting top 20s in the UCI, like some of the bigger races. Was in Chaussels, which is now Chausseprise, which is a massive race. Like, was in the front group with Woot. Like, there's a funny video of that where I get crashed out, and they're like, "Oh, man, it's another good one." But yeah, Woot dropped a bottle, and or his teammate dropped a bottle feeding Woot, and then the dude crashed, and I flipped over the bars.
I think I saw that video. Or is it?
Yeah.
I at least saw a video of him crashing.
It wasn't. Yeah. So then and then once you get dropped there, it's all like fields, so it wasn't catching back on. It was impossible. It's just once you get dropped there, you're done. It's like getting dropped in Roubaix, and I'm not that strong. Yeah. So, no, it would have been a good ride, but yeah, I came home and was really, then I got married, but was really looking forward to 2018 and felt like I was ready.
So you get married, you're kind of like the peak of your cycling career. 2018 rolls around. Like, what were your like goals going into that season?
I mean, that season I just felt like, I was ready for a top 10 ride. The problem was is races started to disappear.
Really?
So 2017 was like we had lost one or two races. I think, I raced the last Philly in 2016. They were hoping Philly would come back, and then we just started losing race after race.
Yeah, it's kind of like the death of road cycling.
Yep.
At that time. Like around here, there's not many road races at all. Like people just do crits or gravel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that, I think 2018 was the real year where we started to realize we were losing a lot, and it just got harder and harder. We were losing teams. We were losing. 2018, I think, was the year where people, like before COVID, but people were like transitioning where it was like, dude, this can't just be this way anymore. Like, think of what Legion's done, or like the way that different teams have had to redefine themselves. I think that was like the start of the year where people realized it just can't be the same anymore. But
What was like taking teams out? Was it just funding? Or
it's funding. I mean, it's just like, cycling wasn't inclusive. Cycling wasn't an inclusive sport. It was just young white guys like riding around. Like, I mean, it's true. It was what it was, and like it was like it played to a certain specific of people, and there was a time where they had the budget for that. But there were bigger races. Tour Utah was still around, Tour Colorado, Tour California. Mm-hmm. Like, I got to give it to Justin and what those guys have done for themselves and what they've done for the sport, and like making it cooler. Like, they've made it cooler, and that's kind of what the guys do in gravel. Like, it feels more inclusive. It feels like, and it's like, well, I'm doing mountain biking now. It's cool, man. Like, road riding, it is cool, but like, our roads don't have the infrastructure for it. The cars are getting worse. It's getting harder to get permits from townships. It's getting harder to work with the police. Like, it's just not, and races are disappearing. The big money, like Philly was like a $2 million race just to put on, just from a perspective of shutting the city down.
Yeah.
And if people aren't going to put that money behind it, and if spectators aren't coming out, you can't charge to come watch a cycling event on the road. So I think the money just started to dry up, and people were just, the same sponsors kept getting tapped into, and then so people were just, we just kind of lost it.
Yeah. And so 2018, you're still racing, like, legs are feeling good.
Yeah.
Now, bring me to that training ride. That kind of like changed everything for you.
I had, up until that point, I won Sea Otter. I had gotten a top 10 at Redlands. I had a few decent rides, but the calendar wasn't looking super great there for it, because like, we didn't even know if Reading was going to happen. Like, we didn't even know what was left in North America. We were trying to get into some of the bigger stuff, but at that point, we didn't know. And I was in July. So July is always like a weird transition. It's like you either do Cascade at the end of the month, or like, and then that's kind of it. And I went out, and I was like, went on a different road than I normally go in. I don't know why I decided to go down this mountain, but I just wanted to see what was down there. I had a loop that I'd always done up that way, and I went down. I was going through a red light. I was going through a yellow, like through the light. It was like it had just transitioned to yellow, and a woman didn't see. It's like a double light, I think, and she ran red, and she hit me at probably 40 miles an hour.
40 miles per hour. And then, did you go unconscious or like what?
No, I saw her and was like, oh my God, here we go. And she would have T-boned me, which I think probably would have killed me. But I saw her and I was able to lock up and I was able to like shoulder check roll into the back of her car, like it was like her rear door. But I had my tools in my back, and I think that's actually what bursted my L2 was I hit one of my tools in my pump. And I kind of like remember like I like sucked into the car and like I don't think I landed on my feet, but I felt like I didn't fall hard. Like I wasn't like cut, I wasn't like bleeding.
Yeah.
I had actually just been up in, a couple weeks prior was up in Canada doing Tour de Boats and had a really bad crash. We were like flying into one of the stages and it was like they forgot to take they normally removed one of those bendable signs, like and dude, one of the rally or UHC riders hit it with his hand and it went down and it was coming back up as I was like the 10th wheel. Dude, I hit it at like 35 miles an hour. I did a complete flip, but then flipped onto my elbows and it was like down to my bone. And I was like, oh. So when I got up at the time, I was like, oh, I've crashed harder. I even like told all the people running out to me. They're like, are you okay? I was like, oh, I've crashed harder.
What? When you got hit by the car?
That's what I was telling people. I was like, I'm fine. I've crashed way harder than this.
So you're just
which
like
was not
walking
true.
around and you're like, maybe my back's broken here.
Which I didn't. So then I got in the police car and the police came and at the time she was like, the woman was like, yeah, I didn't, because when you're in that state, you didn't know exactly what happened. But she's like, I had a green light. And I'm like, well, I wouldn't run a red light. I'm not an idiot. Not this busy of a red light. Like I know cyclists, they'll say, oh, they do rolling stops. This was not that scenario. This was I was going through it. So thankfully, all of the witnesses called 911 and corroborated the story. And then actually before I left, the police officer, because at the time he's like, it's word for word. I'm like, Jesus Christ, this sucks.
I was telling you, I got hit by a car, 3 months ago, and it was nothing bad at all. Like, it was just this little red Honda Civic that had hit my pedal. Like, she came to a T intersection, went in front of me, I went over her windshield, and I kind of like did a cartwheel, and I rolled it out.
Right.
So it wasn't a hard impact. But it shocks you. Adrenaline goes through your system, and I'm like walking around. My knee was really hurting, and I couldn't tell whether I was like, all right, did I like break my knee? And you're just in that state of shock, like going through your whole body. It's like, all right, what's going on here? Like, now, did you feel any pain? Like
at first, no. Like at first, I was like, oh yeah, it hurt. Yes, there was pain, but it wasn't like overly whatever.
Yeah, definitely.
I even refused an ambulance because again, because which is dumb. I would say now looking back, definitely call the ambulance. Like I'm walking around. So, because you're a tough guy, you think you crash your bike. Like now you never experience a vehicular crash, but you're used to hitting the pavement very hard and very fast. Like I've had crashes where because a broken bone's not always as bad as the road rash. The road rash is intense, immediate, extreme pain. Like especially when you really cut yourself. So I didn't have like excruciating pain, but I was like, oh. But then when I was sitting in the car, Jamie, my wife, was like, actually I was like 3 miles from her work. I called her, I was like, hey, I got hit by a car, I'm okay. But she was like, all right, well, I'm gonna come. So she left work and came over. And then when I was sitting in the police car, I started to be like, yo, my back is really starting to hurt. So I get into her car, and we're like probably actually only like 3 miles from Hershey Medical. It was like Vine Street, like not far. And they put me, as soon as they saw me, they put me into trauma unit. I was like embarrassed. Yeah. Like I was like, this is insane. Like you're like, they were like cutting my clothes off. They were like putting me in trauma. They like stabilized me. They did everything. They're like, this is super serious. And then it got really serious where they were like trying to decide if they were going to do back surgery on me then. And I'm like, I broke my back? Like I was like, I'm fine. This is embarrassing. Like, I'm sorry. Like that you just spent all this 14 doctors putting me in a trauma unit. But it was serious. They were right.
Yeah.
Because like you don't know. So I ended up bursting my L2, which it bursted away from my spinal column.
Yeah. So
inwards.
after that, you can't ride your bike at all. You're stuck at home recovering from that. Like, now this was a point you probably had a lot of different thoughts around cycling now. Like everything was starting to shift. Like what was going through your mind there? What was changing? And like how did you deal with that?
I mean, at the time I was like, hey, there's always a part of you that's like, okay, you need to start like being thankful. I'm alive. Okay, this could have been a lot worse. And there was that aspect, but then there was also the aspect of like anger. Like, okay, then why did that happen? You know. Then there was the aspect of like, okay, this is ridiculous. What am I doing this for? Like, why? You know, at that point, I had probably broken a collarbone, had to have surgery. I'd broken a couple wrists, had to have. I raced the world championships with a broken wrist, and we flipped my like I was doing shit like that, right? Like, you know, like the things you do to continue. Like, dude, after I broke my collarbone in 2015, I was racing within 8 weeks. That's insane. The doctor would have killed me if he knew I was doing that. But to me, I was eager. This was the first accident where I was like, okay, pump the brakes here. Let's not jump to doing something stupid. This is my back. This is now my life. This is my body. This is like what I have to live. And there's people that have broken their backs and gone on to do great things, but like this was the first one where I was like centimeters away from being paralyzed. That's like gonna change your life forever.
Yeah.
Where do I go from here? So I think.
And also you had like Jamie at the time, like.
So Jamie, we were married. You know, we were thinking wanted to start a family. She had just lived through a whole college of us chasing our dream. Then I had a whole extra 5 years of doing it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like at what point? Like I'm on her insurance. Like at what point is it like? Am I gonna start living up to you know saving for a future? So yeah, I mean. That was definitely the time of deep thought and transition. And then I was actually offered a contract in 2019, and I did go to the training camp, and they ended up becoming one of the best continental teams in the country that year. But I talked, and Gordon Frazier was the director. He was the director of Silver in the past, great director. And I just said, like, I went to training camp, and I actually had decent form. I was able to get on the bike, and I just did a lot of stationary work.
Yeah.
But I was not doing well with like the road, and I honestly, I just sat down at like the end of camp and just said, look, I've realized now that I'm here and I'm back in this environment. Like, Jamie was pregnant. This isn't for me. I can't do this anymore. And I walked away. I couldn't bear the thought of like crashing it. Like, and they even supported me. Like Jamie and my family did support me to like try to come back, but like I couldn't bear the thought to like crash again and and it was way more mental than physical. Like my back definitely hurt long hours. There's no doubt about it. But we're used to cyclists pushing through the physical stuff, but the mental side. Once the mental side's done, you're done. Yeah. It's over. I just couldn't imagine bombing 70 miles an hour down a road again and crashing. Like it just didn't seem worth it. Like what's the point? For how much? You know, like at what point is it like this just isn't worth it?
Mm-hmm. So that kind of led you into like entrepreneurship. I mean, like today you have this cafe here, you're doing stuff with CBD. Like, do you look back at all? And it sounds like you don't regret anything.
No regret. I mean, honestly, like the CBD and like was how I coped with the pain then. I did, you know, it's like I had like when I break my bones, like they would always give you like painkillers, Vicodins, and opioids, and like I'll be the first to tell you, like opioids are great, dude. You take a Vicodin, you feel fantastic. Like how I got back, like I had a completely shattered collarbone that needed surgery, and we had to drive back from Winston-Salem. It's like I'll drink 6 beers and eat a Vicodin. Like that's how, and then I get to like, hit a bump and you're like, oh fuck, you're another beer. It's not good for you at all.
Yeah.
Like it's terrible. So I knew like after I had a bad accident, it was like am I gonna go into I'm not a depressive person, but like am I gonna go into depression? Am I gonna get anxiety? Like, you know, what is? I just knew that laying around and taking painkillers was not gonna be it. So I did it with can therapy. Like honestly, it was the first time I had ever done that, but it was like, let's try to do this, and it was it was the best thing I could have done.
Yeah, definitely.
So that kind of led into that transition of alternative wellness, but also like what CBD and cannabis in general can do for pain relief. And that kind of because I did study entrepreneurship in college, and like I'd always been taught like there's red and blue oceans. A red ocean is like oversaturated markets. Open one of those, that would be a coffee shop. A coffee shop's a red ocean, right? Like everyone has a coffee shop or a cafe. But a blue ocean is like no one's done that before, and it's like an open market that like is like unique and also like the first of its kind. So I felt like CBD, the farm bill I just passed, but also like with the cafe, you can like turn it into a blue ocean because it's like no one's doing CBD coffee and no one really even knows about it.
Definitely.
So that was a really big idea that I had. Jamie was an autistic school teacher in medical marijuana, which just passed in Pennsylvania, and she was like coming home and like, dude, these kids are like completely changing. Like they're coming in, like and they're like, yeah, they're doing like they're able to regulate themselves a little bit better because they're on the medical marijuana program, and it's like helping them with some of their behaviors or just dealing with their own, internal situations. And I think collectively for us, where we were at in our life with the medicine of it, it just made sense. And she took a huge risk and left her job as a teacher to do this, and like she followed me, like, and she's always done that. She's always, believed, and I owe her a lot for that. Because this cafe wouldn't be what it is if it wasn't for her. Like she's the one that put the work in, and like really, like she was here day to day. I just do like the vision stuff,
Yeah, you're talking about like kind of like the blue ocean concept, where like the prerequisite for that is you have to have an idea that is
100%.
different to separate yourself, but you also need a level of just like extreme effort to really put that out there, because not many people they're like, oh, you're opening up a coffee shop but it's CBD based. Like, so my question is, like, looking back on all your experiences within the cycling world and then moving into the business world, like what experiences or skills did you develop that really aided you in this, like just in the business world in general? Because now you're not pro cycling, you're in the, like, kind of like the world of business.
Question. The being and accepting the unknown, right? Because like cycling is always unknown. Like there's like no, you can train your hardest, but like there's variables every day. Every race is different. Everything's going to be a variable, and so is business. Like there's no guarantees. There's never a guarantee. Like nothing, and you can never like become complacent. It's just like you can't be complacent, and you can't just expect a certain something to happen. So, and always striving to be better. And it sounds cliche, but it is true. Like, I mean, especially we opened 2 months before COVID. Surviving through COVID, rebranding, and then like getting all of these things together, and then like putting our personal wealth behind an idea, and like in like believing in ourselves. Like, I think in entrepreneurship and business, there's a time and a place where like if you believe in yourself, you can work hard and it will be done. But I don't necessarily think our generation that's necessarily the truth. I think that there are plenty of hardworking people and businesses that do still fail, especially in today's environment. And I think that, in a city like Lancaster, that is such like an arts district and a business-centric, small business-centric city, they provide that support, but you also have to give back to them, and that means like you have to like fit the right vibe here, and you have to be good to the community, for sure, and you have to have something that they want. And it's been a ride, but it really has really taken off the past couple of months, and it feels like it's all that hard work is really paying off.
Definitely. Another kind of note I want to touch on, like in the cycling world, I imagine there's a pressure to perform.
Oh yeah.
It's like, all right, if I don't do well, like, all right, I'm not going to have a job next year.
Correct.
Do you feel like that pressure has helped you, like, just keep?
Yeah, I mean, in cycling, it was different a little bit, because in cycling it felt like when you didn't perform, it was like your self-worth, like it was like the saying you're only as good as your last result. That was a hard thing to live through. Like that was a hard, like sometimes it'd be a week or 2 or 3 weeks to 4 weeks to your next race, and that whole time you either were like, oh God, like, you know what I mean? Like it just, that was hard. Like I don't miss that, like that unknown of like, man, why did I have a bad race? Or like, why did that happen? Or like, in business, it feels like every day you wake up, you got a new shot. And not that you don't with cycling, right? You do get a new chance every day, but it's also like the competition is only...
Yeah, you don't have those peak moments where you have to prove yourself.
Right.
Now, you used to define yourself as pro cyclist.
Yeah.
Like, how do you define yourself now? Like,
what
are Jake Sitler's roles?
Interesting.
Like,
yeah, you know, the business aspect is like, oh geez. To me right now, I would say obviously the biggest thing is a dad.
yeah, that's awesome.
Being a dad, man. Like honestly, like my dad was, and my mom was fantastic. I don't mean, but my dad and I like just like I have very fond memories of the stuff we did together. Like, you know, like going to boat races or doing those things together. And like to me, like right now, like in my life, like business or not, like yeah, the business is what's gonna support our family, and that is very important. But also like, dude, just like the way that they look at you and like that's the best, man. Like that's it. Like it doesn't matter. Like even if we're like whatever amount of money, as long as he's like there's clothes on the back and there's a shelter, it's like just ripping with that dude is like the best.
Yeah, we're just seeing pictures. Well, there's this one picture. It's like Fletcher's first race, and you're just in the background smiling, like looking at him. Like that's just like priceless.
Oh
like,
man, yeah. I mean, honestly, like, and that's a big reason that I've gotten back into cycling. Like I should say, I can't say that like for 3 years I walked away and was fine with that walk away, but there was always that underlying like there's more. And I definitely have, I think, you know, Jamie would say, does a very good job of keeping me in check. Like she doesn't let me get out of balance. Like when you're a pro cyclist, your life's completely out of balance. Yeah. Everything's out of balance. Like I missed weddings. I mean everything. I missed so many important milestones for people. Like because you're literally. It's the most selfish thing in the entire world. All you do is focus on yourself and peak performance. Whereas now, like, I'm quote unquote racing mountain bikes professionally. We're flying out to Utah. I'm trying to qualify for a World Cup.
Yeah.
But it's different. It's like I'm doing it for the dads, and I'm just like, just whatever.
You're like in a new category, like the dad.
Yeah, like the dad that works, that like has a business, and like it's like my training is like doing like tempo pulling a cart with Fletcher.
Well, I've seen you just ripping it on the rail trail with Fletcher in the back.
Yeah, and it's like that's it. Like some days you can ride an hour, some days you can ride an hour and a half, some days you can ride 30 minutes. Like you know, like and being okay with that, but I think one thing during COVID I think we all realized is like we're so fortunate to have endurance sports in our life because mental health is such a problem right now, and I feel like to me cycling I realize it's like it's my medicine, to be honest. It really is.
That's a common thread, at least for me. And I used to race a lot, and I love the competitive aspect, but then I'm like, all right, I'm not going to go pro or anything. And it became this therapeutic thing where I could go for a 4-hour ride. I had my best thoughts, most creative thoughts, and that's how I view cycling now. It's like this therapeutic thing. It's a challenge,
which is amazing because if you think about it, think of how fortunate we are to have that, right? Like that, like there's a lot of people that don't have that outlook. I mean, you know, whether it's whatever you do in life, I mean, as long as you have that passion and it's something that, you know, is cycling going to fix all our mental problems? Absolutely not. We're always going to have, you know, things, but we do have that. And for me, the competition now is like I was telling you on our ride, is like, it's just, you're just thankful that you get another shot at just being able to go out there and get it. You know, like to me now, it's like I look forward to it. Whereas before it was like, well, what if I suck? Now it's just like,
now you're just having fun.
Oh, it's a freaking god, rip it, man. And I feel like I actually perform better now. it's like, man, I wish I could have had that mindset, but you can't. It's impossible.
You can.
You can say that a million times. You'll never have that. When you're a pro with sponsor, you're never gonna. I have one sponsor now. Verge actually did sponsor.
Yeah, tell me about that. Yeah.
Well, we sold a lot of kits through the cafe, and they were like, yeah, man, we'll sponsor you. So it's like, I want to that's it. Like, I don't want expectations, but I would love to have, like build a little race program, and I have been helping out a lot with, well, not a lot, but when I can, help out with the high school mountain bike programs, and I really want to get into that. Like, I really want to, at some point, this area needs a development program that leads kids into the next level, and whether it's when Fletcher's a little bit older or something presents itself, I will 100% throw all my time and energy into that at some point in my life. I know I will. It's just going to be a question of when.
Yeah.
And I would love to develop a program for kids that can recreate that, and I think without putting so much pressure, because I've seen like parents and the pressure you can put on kids, and like even expectations even at a young age, like, and I need to like constantly remind myself this of like being a parent too, like never throw, because like my dad never.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, like, do you think that drive is gonna help the next generation stems partially or largely from your dad or your grandfather?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I want to do it because I have a son and I see, like, but also because of the people that helped me. Like, there were people that, like, that gave to their community and to, like, and I feel like I've gotten so much out of this sport that, like, it's only fair to give back. Like, I haven't given back as much as I've been given. I know that's for a fact.
Yeah.
So at some point, it's like, I need to start being on the giving end. So like now I want to do it as much as I can. Like, we brought a cafe to like, Mike Kuhn puts on a mountain bike race up in Relay, and like we donated all the sales to their mountain bike program.
Oh, cool.
So like, we want to start doing stuff like that and just help as little as it is, but help as much as we can. And then like I want to help develop kids and just kind of, good or not good, I mean, just be a fun. It's a vibe, man. It's like you gotta just have fun, dude. Like like, and that's what I love about some of these mountain bike programs. But I mean, Pickle and like, there's like 2,500 kids.
Yeah, it's wild.
Like, think about that. It's as big as their race weekends are as big as like PIA, AA, XC sport. Like, it's a real sport. Like, there's a ton of kids doing it.
Yeah.
Like, think of what's gonna come from that.
Yeah, it's so good to get like kids. Like, cycling for me has been huge. So many different connections and just an outlet. And for the kids who don't like ball sports, they're like not into that, and they just want to go ride, have fun. Like, it's perfect. Like, it's great to see.
Yeah, and I think we're gonna have a real upswing from what NICA and Pickle and all these programs are gonna do, because I mean, man, like, there's gotta be, like, think of that. There was, I think at Fair Hill this weekend, there was like 550 people registered. I read somewhere like 40 kids in the junior race.
Oh, wow.
That's a lot.
Yeah, when I was racing Mass, like
4
or 5 years ago, we might have had like 10, 15.
Yeah, like 10 was big, like when I was racing. 40, and that's a school year. They're still in school.
Yeah.
I mean, it's exciting times.
It's so cool. Now, another exciting thing, it seems like Fletcher's kind of on ripping the bike around. Like, what's he, how's his development coming? So, like, he's, 3?
Yeah, he was riding the pedal bike at like 3 months before 3. So wow. I was like, all right. He's got they came out with these like kids ride shotgun seats, and they're like that front seat mountain bike.
Yeah.
It's pretty game changer for the dad. Like, it's like it puts the kid in control a little bit, teaches him a little bit of it gives him the concept. And obviously striders, right? Like, we didn't have striders when we were growing up. Like, I probably learned to ride a pedal bike at like 5. I don't want to know how old I was, but I wasn't 2 and a half. Yeah, man. I mean, it's 2 and a half. It's like hard to even talk about his progression, but he's a shredder, man.
And it seems like he's got your energy too.
He does.
Yeah.
More. He's
more energy.
He gives Jamie and I a run for our money. It's out of control. My mom is like, you weren't even like this, dude. He's like, good luck. This kid is an insane person. But again, gonna have to have an outlet for that energy, man.
Yeah, definitely.
And how many times have we heard that story of like this? My son was a lunatic until he found sports or whatever.
Yeah.
We've realized it from an early age. This kid is gonna need to have some sort of direction.
Mm-hmm.
But he keeps us on our toes.
Awesome, dude. I guess we could wrap it up.
Yeah, man. Cheers.
Anything else you want to?
No, I think that was good.
Park City.
Yeah, Park City, Utah. Yeah, so it'll be an altitude first UCI mountain bike race, but I've scored UCI points on the road bike, scored them on the cross bike, so
Yeah.
got to get the old trifecta. If I can do the mountain bike,
Yeah,
I've done all 3 disciplines now, man. Just call me Vanderpool at this point.
The Vanderpool of Lancaster City. Yeah.
The Vanderpool of Cranley, Pennsylvania. That's where I grew up.
But yeah, we're out here. Endo Cafe. We've got some good coffee here. They have all the CBD products you could imagine. Stop by. There's a bike shop next door.
Yeah,
get some croissants or some some coffee.
Jamie makes the best breakfast burritos.
Yeah, perfect.
Delicious. Cheers, man. Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah, dude. Good stuff.
Cool.